Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial as reported by Inner City Press. The courtroom was dead silent as the judge called the next witness. All eyes turned toward the back as a familiar face stepped forward, one that no one expected to see. Usher Raymond, the Grammy-winning R&B star, was about to testify. Not about his music, not about a label dispute, but about what really happened behind the closed doors of Sean Diddy Combs' empire. For years, Usher stayed silent. He played the game, smiled through interviews, dodged questions. But now, as Diddy faces federal charges of trafficking, coercion, and a criminal enterprise of abuse, Usher has finally decided to tell the truth. And the truth, he says, has been eating him alive. From what he witnessed as a 14-year-old under Diddy's care to what he later realized about the entertainment industry's darkest corners, this testimony isn't just shocking, it's historic. And it could change everything. Usher began by recounting the day his mother told him he was going to live with Diddy in New York. At the time, he was just 14 years old, fresh off his debut album and eager to rise in the ranks of the music industry. L.A. Reid had arranged the mentorship with the belief that being around Diddy would fast-track Usher's success. What none of them expected was the kind of world Usher would be walking into. "I thought I was going to learn how to be a star," Usher told the court, his voice steady but tight. "What I saw instead were things no teenager should be around." Usher testified that from the moment he entered Diddy's Midtown Manhattan penthouse, the environment was saturated in excess. Champagne on breakfast trays, strangers waking up in rooms he didn't know existed, people he later recognized from TV and magazines lounging half-dressed or passed out. It wasn't a home, it was a scene. He called it the flavor camp. Usher said, "I didn't know what that meant. I thought it was just branding." Later, he realized it meant indulgence. The court listened intently as Usher described how the mentorship quickly turned into something else. Diddy wasn't teaching him about vocals or performance. Instead, Usher claimed he was encouraged to observe the lifestyle, to party with celebrities, and to stop asking questions. "He told me, this is how we do it. You don't ask, you just watch. Learn by watching. That's how grown men roll." He recalled one night when he woke up around 3 a.m. to find people in masks entering the apartment. Music was playing low, and candles lit the hallway. He walked into the living room and saw what he could only describe as a ritualistic party. It wasn't just sex, there was structure to it. Cameras, lists, and no one looked surprised. "I thought, maybe I had walked into a movie set. I remember thinking, I shouldn't be seeing this." Usher said he was told to go back to bed, but he didn't sleep that night. That was the moment, he said, that changed how he saw Diddy forever. The next part of Usher's testimony centered around the warnings he never received. Not from his record label, not from his mother, not from industry insiders who all knew what Diddy's world really looked like. "People thought Diddy was eccentric," Usher explained. "They didn't realize he had power over people in a way that was quiet but absolute. If he didn't like you, your career stalled. If he liked you, your silence was part of the deal." Usher told the jury that there were others like him. Young artists brought into the fold, promised a fast track to fame, but slowly pulled into Diddy's orbit in ways they couldn't understand at the time. He named no names yet, but hinted that more would come forward. There were people around us who saw. Assistants, drivers, other musicians. Everybody acted like it was normal. But deep down, they knew. The adults failed us. One particularly disturbing moment in his testimony came when he described a private trip to the Caribbean Diddy took him on when he was 15. It was supposed to be a retreat, just me, him, and a couple others. The place was isolated, no press, no cameras. And that's where I realized I wasn't there to learn anything about music. He paused. I won't go into everything, but what I will say is that I wasn't given a choice about the environment I was placed in. And it took me years to understand the manipulation. The courtroom was silent. Usher said that after the trip, his relationship with Diddy changed. The mogul became more controlling. There were always new people around, always more parties, always more rules. And every time Usher pushed back, even slightly, he was reminded who made his career. He told me, "You don't bite the hand that feeds you. Remember who gave you this life." Usher ended the segment by looking directly at Diddy. "You didn't give me this life. You gave me nightmares." Usher's third portion of testimony was perhaps the most stunning. He described being presented with a contract at the age of 16 that included a confidentiality clause. Though it was under the guise of a standard non-disclosure agreement to protect Bad Boy Records' internal dealings, Usher claimed it included specific language about private events and discretion. At the time, I didn't even know what half the words meant, Usher told the court. My mother had to co-sign, and the label's lawyers said it was standard. But now, looking back, I know what it was. A contract to keep me quiet. He said he signed it because he trusted them. That signature bought my silence for years. I wasn't allowed to speak about parties, guests, behaviors. I was told it would ruin the brand. But what about what it did to me? Usher said that clause was invoked years later when he attempted to speak out about some of the things he had seen. In 2009, I was working on an interview with a major publication. The questions started getting personal. Suddenly, I got a call from Bad Boy's old legal team. They reminded me of my NDA. They said, "We hope you're not trying to jeopardize your reputation." He said he never went through with the interview. But it wasn't just lawyers. Usher claimed he received veiled threats from people still tied to Diddy's empire. People he hadn't spoken to in years. You think you're done with that world, but it's never done with you. And if you step out of line, there are consequences, not just to your career, but to your safety. The courtroom sat frozen as Usher pulled out a copy of the NDA. The judge allowed it as evidence. It included language about audiovisual documentation and unauthorized reproduction, phrases that now took on a sinister tone in the light of Diddy's alleged freak-off video library. Usher's voice cracked slightly. That document made me feel like I was crazy for years, like everything I saw, everything I felt, wasn't real because I wasn't allowed to say it out loud. Usher's voice wavered as he described a lesser-known moment from 1996, when he was just 17 years old and Diddy took him to an exclusive mansion party in Atlanta. It was a pivotal moment that would reshape how he viewed the man he once saw as a mentor. According to Usher, Diddy was in full party host mode, with a house filled with celebrities, models, and mysterious men who didn't seem connected to the music industry at all. Usher said he wasn't expecting what he saw next. The house was lavish, marble floors, security at every door, a DJ spinning until sunrise. But what stood out wasn't the luxury. It was the secret room. Usher told the courtroom he remembered Diddy whispering to one of the security guards, who opened a locked door at the back of the mansion. "You're not ready for that yet," Diddy said to me with a grin. Usher said he peeked in anyway. There were people in masks. That's all I'll say. I didn't know what I was looking at then. He said something that made everyone in the courtroom Shift. I think that night changed me, Usher confessed. I saw things I still can't explain. I don't know if it was legal, but I know it wasn't right. He then held up photocopied pages from a journal. Usher explained he had started writing the journal in 1998, originally to document song lyrics and thoughts. But as the years passed, it became a vault of personal memories and observations from his time around Diddy. In one entry dated March 1999, Usher wrote, "Had dinner with Diddy and 3 execs, I didn't know. They kept talking about loyalty. Said, loyalty keeps you on tour. Honesty puts you back home." Diddy laughed. Another passage, dated October 2000, described a Thursday night where Usher was allegedly invited but declined. Too many secrets, too many masks. Diddy says it's just the culture. I don't agree. Did you ever tell anyone about these entries? The prosecutor asked. Usher shook his head. I was afraid of losing everything. I didn't think anyone would believe me. When asked why he was sharing it now, Usher replied, "Because I've lived with it long enough, and it's time the truth comes out." Usher leaned into the microphone and revealed an encounter he said he hadn't even told his closest friends. In 1997, at age 18, he was invited by Diddy to meet a powerful music investor in Miami, someone who could fund Usher's First World tour and help him build his brand. "I thought it was about business," Usher explained. "Diddy hyped it up like it was the biggest break of my life. He told me to dress up, look sharp, and be polite. When Usher arrived at the penthouse suite at the Setai Hotel, he found 3 men lounging in robes with high-end champagne and several young women sitting quietly in the background. One of them, he said he was from overseas, asked me if I wanted to be remembered forever," Usher said. He wasn't talking about music. Usher said Diddy left him alone with the men. "I felt trapped," he testified. "They didn't touch me, but one of them put his hand on my shoulder and said, 'You can stay or you can leave, but you'll never get another invitation like this again.'" He left, and that's when things started to change. Usher said he was removed from one tour opportunity, and a prominent producer suddenly pulled out of working with him. "No one ever said it was because I left that suite," Usher explained. "But after that night, doors that had always been open suddenly shut." Usher also testified that Diddy showed him a disturbing clip from a handheld camera a few weeks later. He laughed as he played it back. It was of another young artist. He was doing something I know he wouldn't have agreed to unless someone made him. "Did Diddy threaten you?" the attorney asked. Usher paused. He didn't have to. The people around him did. They didn't use words. They used silence and exile. Usher said this was the moment he realized fame was no longer about talent. It was about submission. "That's how you stayed famous in Diddy's world?" Usher's tone turned personal as the courtroom lights dimmed slightly, with cameras now focused solely on his face. "This is the hardest part," he said, "because it's not about me anymore." He went on to describe the early days of Justin Bieber's rise. Usher had been instrumental in launching the pop star's career, co-signing him and serving as his mentor. At the beginning, it was all positive. "I wanted to be the big brother I never had," Usher said. But then Diddy entered the picture. According to Usher, Diddy began inviting Bieber to parties, calling it flavor camp, the same phrase he used with Usher years earlier. He was 15, Usher said, and they were treating him like a grown man. One night in 2011, Usher got a call from Bieber. He didn't say anything at first. "I just heard breathing." Then he said, "I want to come home." Usher's team attempted to track him down, but Bieber went silent for 2 days. When they met again, Bieber wouldn't look Usher in the eye. He just said, "It's fine, I'm good now." But he wasn't. Usher testified. He then revealed that he'd confronted Diddy privately and asked him directly, "What are you doing to these kids?" According to Usher, Diddy chuckled and replied, "Same thing they did to me. It's how the game works." Usher said that was the last serious conversation he had with Diddy. "After that, I stepped back. I didn't want my name tied to it, but watching what happened to Justin, I couldn't stay silent anymore." He also revealed for the first time that in 2018, he received a call from an anonymous number with a voice that said, "Tell him to keep his mouth shut, or we'll shut it for him." When asked who he believed was behind the call, Usher looked directly at the defense table. "I think you know." Usher revealed that the breaking point in his relationship with Diddy came during a now infamous night that had never been publicly discussed until now. According to his testimony, it was an unassuming private party at a hidden estate in the Hollywood Hills in 2002. Usher claimed that what he saw that night changed the way he saw Diddy forever. The event, which he described as more like a rite of passage than a party, involved several young artists and models, many of whom were under the impression that they were being offered career opportunities. Usher testified that Diddy had invited him under the guise of meeting a new producer from Europe. But when he arrived, he said there were no executives, no producers, just dim lighting, security at every corner, and a heavy aura of secrecy. He described an environment where phones were confiscated at the door, and a strange series of contracts were presented to guests. These were labeled NDAs, but had more aggressive language than anything he'd ever seen in the industry. "The vibe was wrong," Usher said in court, his voice reportedly breaking for the first time. "There were people there who weren't artists. They weren't executives. I realized they were just observers." He said he recognized several famous faces, some of whom had never been connected publicly to Diddy, but refused to name them on record, hinting instead that if this trial continues, others will come forward. The most harrowing part of his statement came when he said that after trying to leave the party early, he was stopped by a man he did not recognize and brought to a side room where Diddy was seated. "He told me, 'You're not ready yet. You still think this is about music. This is bigger than that.'" Usher left that night and claimed he never returned to another party hosted by Diddy again. Usher's testimony pivoted toward the business practices Diddy had employed, not just with him, but with dozens of bad boy artists. For the first time, Usher submitted internal emails and contract drafts revealing that he had signed a development deal as a teen that locked him into 5 albums and gave away the rights to his masters until the age of 35. "I didn't know what I was signing," Usher admitted. "I just wanted to sing." He then exposed how other artists were tied into similar contracts, mentioning names like Carl Thomas, Total, Black Rob, and the late Craig Mack. Usher alleged that Diddy had a pattern of pulling artists close with promises of mentorship and exposure, only to discard them once they were no longer useful or obedient. He even revealed that a private accountant once sent him a spreadsheet with the royalties he had missed over the years, totaling more than $4.3 million. When he brought this to Diddy's attention, he claims Diddy laughed and told him, "If you knew what was really owed to you, you wouldn't sleep at night." Court documents also revealed that several artists had taken settlements in silence, some accepting small payments just to regain the right to use their names or perform their songs. One of the biggest revelations was that Usher had tried to organize a secret meeting with other artists in 2011 to address their collective grievances, but said the meeting never happened because someone tipped Diddy off. Even more damning was his claim that he once saw Diddy order the destruction of demo tapes and footage belonging to an artist who had threatened to speak out. That artist, Usher said, has since vanished from public life. I don't know where he is. Nobody does. But I remember his voice, and I remember that he was scared. This statement silenced the courtroom. In the final part of his testimony, Usher broke down when asked why he never came forward earlier. His response was both haunting and heartbreaking. Because I thought I owed him. I thought if I stayed silent, I could move on and still be grateful. But you can't be grateful for a lie. Usher said the guilt had eaten at him for years. He talked about watching other young artists fall into the same trap he once did, and admitted that for a long time, he didn't know how to help them without destroying his own career. It was always about leverage, he said, and Diddy had all of it. He revealed that in 2016, around the time the infamous Drink Champs clip started circulating again online, he had attempted to confront Diddy privately, but was blocked by Diddy's legal team. What struck the courtroom most was when Usher described an unpublished journal entry he had written the night he left Diddy's mentorship for good. It said, "I survived Puffy, but did the kid in me survive? I still don't know." He ended his testimony by addressing the court, the victims watching online, and the younger generation of artists who idolize the people on trial. This isn't just about one man. It's about an entire system that told kids like me to be quiet, to stay in line, and to never question the hands that fed us. But I'm here now, and I'm not afraid anymore. Not for me, because I've already lived through it. I'm doing this for the ones who didn't. At that moment, the courtroom stood silent. What began as a federal case about racketeering and trafficking had turned into something much bigger, a reckoning for decades of silence in the music industry. What the public never knew until now is that at the height of his early fame, just after releasing 8701 in 2001, Usher quietly disappeared from the spotlight for a full week. Industry insiders assumed he was taking a break from the grueling tour schedule. But in court, Usher revealed that he was checked into a private mental health facility in Northern California under a false name. According to his testimony, the cause of the breakdown stemmed from unresolved trauma that dated back to his time living with Diddy as a teen. Usher admitted that he had started experiencing panic attacks shortly after turning 20, often triggered by seemingly innocuous things, flashing lights, tight crowds, certain types of music. At first, he didn't understand the connection, but it all came rushing back one night while staying in a hotel in New York, a building that coincidentally used to be the location of one of Diddy's infamous parties. I walked into the hallway, and I smelled the same brand of candles he used to burn, Usher told the court. My whole body froze. I started shaking. I couldn't breathe. That night, his team rushed him to the clinic, where he stayed under observation for 5 days. What he shared with the in-house psychiatrist, he told the jury, is something he had never revealed publicly before. I told him I saw things no kid should see. I lived in a world where power meant silence and survival meant smiling through it. That house, he said, wasn't just a crash pad. It was a place where dreams were sold. But your soul was the price. Usher testified that the psychiatrist diagnosed him with PTSD, a revelation that stunned both the courtroom and his fans watching from outside. He said it took nearly 2 years of therapy before he could sleep through the night without recurring nightmares. Though Usher never named others who may have gone through the same thing, he hinted that several other young artists who had similar relationships with Diddy had also disappeared or suffered emotional breakdowns but were too afraid to speak. I was lucky. I had the money to get help, but some of the others didn't. One of them overdosed. Another tried to take his life. And a third, he just vanished. When asked why he kept this a secret for over 2 decades, Usher didn't flinch. Because nobody would have believed me. In 2001, Puffy was untouchable, and I was just the kid with the voice. He paused. But now the world is ready to listen. The court went still, not just from the confession, but from the implications it carried. That behind every platinum record, every Grammy speech, and every sold-out show, there may have been a silent war happening inside the mind of a young artist just trying to survive. And now, finally, he was speaking up, not just for himself, but for every voice that had been drowned out by the music. Usher's voice lowered slightly as the court prepared for cross-examination. The defense tried to challenge his credibility, pointing to his continued relationship with Diddy after the alleged events. If this was all true, the defense attorney asked, why did you continue to work in the same circles? Why didn't you walk away sooner? Usher didn't hesitate. Because it's not that simple. This industry is a web. Even when you think you've left, the strings are still attached. And some of us, we stay in it because we think we can protect the next one. Because we think we can make it better. He looked straight ahead. But you can't protect anyone when you're still bleeding yourself. That statement hit hard. Even some in the jury shifted in their seats. The prosecutor returned with a softer line of questioning, allowing Usher to further explain his silence and what finally pushed him to come forward. Was there a single moment you knew you had to speak out? She asked. Usher nodded. Yes. The night I saw a clip online of a new artist smiling with Diddy at Flavor Camp. He said that face haunted him. He looked like me. Young, eager, ready to learn. And I knew exactly what road he was about to be pushed down. That, Usher claimed, was the moment he contacted his legal team and began preparing to break his NDA. According to court filings, Usher's team discovered several legal loopholes in the original contract, especially due to its age and questionable ethics around how it was signed. I was a minor, Usher reminded the court, and now I'm not. He leaned in, voice calm but clear, and I will not be quiet anymore. The judge allowed a brief recess. As court resumed, Usher was asked if there were any final messages he wanted to share publicly. He took a deep breath and said, yes. To the kids out there who think fame is safety, it's not. Fame can be a cage if the wrong people hold the key. You need to know the difference between a mentor and a master. And if anyone ever makes you feel like silence is your only option, find a way to scream. There wasn't a sound in the room. Outside, reporters gathered, already buzzing about what would surely become one of the most talked-about testimonies in music industry history. The prosecution then submitted Usher's journal entries, the NDA, internal emails, and a list of alleged witnesses mentioned in his statement as official evidence. The judge marked them for the record. Diddy, sitting calmly at the defense table, showed no emotion, but those watching noted his fingers clenched slightly as Usher stepped down from the stand. The courtroom took a moment to breathe. Then, slowly, one by one, more witnesses were called. Former artists, assistants, and even security personnel who had once worked the very doors Usher described. Some corroborated his stories. Others expanded them. But a pattern emerged of silence, manipulation, and absolute control. Usher had opened the door, and now the flood was starting. By the end of the day, prosecutors confirmed that more artists had agreed to testify in the coming weeks, many of them having signed similar contracts or NDAs. One of the lead prosecutors stated during a press conference, "This is not just a case about Sean Combs. This is about power, silence, and the price of fame. We're peeling back the layers of a culture that has protected predators under the guise of celebrity." As for Usher, he left the courthouse without comment. his head held high but eyes filled with exhaustion. His team released a brief statement saying only, "The truth has been spoken. And now it is time for accountability." Industry reactions were immediate. Some defended Diddy, claiming character assassination. Others expressed sorrow and solidarity, saying they too had heard whispers, but were too afraid to speak. What no one could deny was this: the music world would never sound quite the same again. The ripple effect of Usher's testimony hit the music industry like a shockwave. Within 24 hours, several major outlets published op-eds and exposés revisiting old rumors that had long circulated about Diddy's infamous camps and invite-only retreats. Former collaborators went silent. PR teams scrambled to release statements of distance or denial. But the internet had already latched on. Hashtags like Usher Speaks and font music industry reckoning trended worldwide. Fans split into factions, some praising Usher's bravery, others questioning his timing, but to survivors of abuse across all industries, his words echoed louder than anything he'd ever sung. Advocacy groups began pushing for new legislation around youth protection in entertainment. Lawmakers in New York and California issued calls for hearings. Meanwhile, Usher stayed out of the spotlight, reportedly entering a private retreat in Arizona to recover from the trial's emotional toll. Sources close to him described his mood as quiet but determined. "He knows it's not over," one insider said. "He just lit the match. Now, the industry has to decide whether to burn or rebuild." Behind closed doors, record labels began internal reviews. Some artists reportedly began lawyering up, worried that what was once normalized could now be criminalized. One particularly chilling revelation came when another artist, whose name was sealed in court documents, testified anonymously via video feed. Their voice distorted, their face hidden. They confirmed elements of Usher's story and added new details. "We were told to keep our mouths shut," the voice said. "We were told the lifestyle was the reward, and the silence was the cost." The anonymous witness claimed to have attended 3 of Diddy's secret parties between 2003 and 2007. Phones were taken, NDAs were signed, and what happened after midnight wasn't music, it was manipulation. According to court reporters, that testimony visibly shook members of the jury. A young woman sitting near the back began to cry. One juror asked for a break. The judge agreed. Court adjourned early that day, but the momentum wasn't slowing. Several major news platforms launched investigations into former bad boy artists. Leaked memos and emails surfaced, showing years of complaints, red flags, and buried settlements. The most damning of which came from a 2005 email between a legal advisor and a senior executive. It read, "If these kids start talking, it could dismantle everything." That line was quoted repeatedly in press coverage, with many calling it the smoking gun of a culture built on control. Meanwhile, artists who had once kept quiet began to post cryptic messages on social media. A former R&B girl group member tweeted, "Finally, we ain't crazy." Another posted a photo from 1998 with Diddy cropped out entirely, and the caption, "Time reveals everything." Back in court, the prosecution moved swiftly to secure more testimony. The judge agreed to extend the trial, citing the depth and breadth of new evidence surfacing daily. Usher, though no longer required to testify, submitted a final written tweet statement to be read in court. In that letter, which was read aloud by the prosecutor, Usher wrote, "This isn't vengeance. It's a reckoning. I am not here to destroy a man. I'm here to expose a system. I hope others will come forward. And I hope those still in power will think twice before creating another flavor camp." The courtroom applauded. Briefly, before, being warned by the bailiff. The judge allowed it. The cultural conversation shifted once more. Streaming platforms began removing curated playlists that featured Diddy's name prominently. One even paused royalties to affiliated projects pending. The trial's outcome. An insider at one major platform said, "We're reassessing how we support legacy artists tied to active abuse cases." Radio stations followed suit. Sponsors pulled out of upcoming Bad Boy-themed events. A scheduled tribute at an upcoming awards show was abruptly canceled. The impact wasn't just financial, it was generational. Newer artists began openly questioning the silence that had once been demanded of them. Some even used their performances to speak out. During a live show in Los Angeles, a rising R&B star paused mid-set to say, "We stand on the shoulders of those who spoke when silence was safer. Thank you, Usher." The crowd erupted in applause. Meanwhile, former protégés of Diddy continued to feel the weight of the revelations. Some denied involvement. Others claimed ignorance. A few began quietly reaching out to advocacy groups and legal teams. And in the heart of the storm, Diddy's empire began to fracture. Sponsors backed out. Business partners distanced themselves. New deals stalled. Still, Diddy maintained his innocence. His legal team released a public statement calling the allegations gross distortions of consensual adult interactions and claimed the trial was a media-fueled character assassination. But as more witnesses came forward, that defense grew harder to sustain. Investigative journalists began piecing together timelines, finding inconsistencies in Diddy's past statements. The walls were closing in, and the man once seen as untouchable now seemed increasingly alone. Yet, Usher remained largely silent in the public eye. He posted only one message on social media weeks later. A black square with the words, "Tell the truth, no matter the cost." It went viral. Artists, actors, and even politicians reposted it with their own messages of support. And as the music industry braced for what many were calling its Me Too moment, the attention turned to accountability, not just for Diddy, but for all those who enabled, ignored, or profited from the system he thrived in. One journalist wrote, "This isn't just about a man. It's about an industry that made room for monsters as long as they made money." Behind the scenes, Usher continued to cooperate with prosecutors. He provided handwritten notes, early tiled demo recordings, and additional journal entries that had never been seen before. One, dated just after his first Grammy win, simply read, "I wish I could enjoy this, but I feel dirty. Like I didn't earn it. Like I traded more than music for this." That page was entered into evidence. Courtroom reactions remained intense. The jury was visibly moved. Reporters noted that several attendees began crying during readings of victim statements that followed Usher's. In those testimonies, others detailed similar experiences: the power plays, the manipulation, the forced silence. Some described lives upended. Others still struggled to speak at all. One simply said, "I still can't listen to my own songs without getting sick." The trial's final days were marked by closing arguments that highlighted the pattern of grooming, coercion, and fear that had allegedly kept Diddy's inner circle intact for decades. The defense stuck to its narrative: consensual behavior, exaggeration, conspiracy, but the public wasn't buying it anymore. Media outlets compared the moment to the fall of other once revered figures in entertainment. But for many watching, it felt different, more visceral, more long overdue, and more connected to a generation of voices that had long gone unheard. When the verdict finally came, the courtroom held its breath. Guilty, on multiple counts. The judge ordered immediate sentencing proceedings. Gasps echoed through the gallery. Diddy, still expressionless, was taken into custody without incident. His attorneys vowed to appeal. But the tone had shifted. The curtain had been pulled back. And what it revealed was more than just the secrets of one man. It was the architecture of silence that had supported him. As reporters rushed to break the news, one camera caught a final image of Usher leaving the courthouse alone, hoodie up, head down, the weight of the moment resting on his shoulders. No entourage, no applause. Just quiet resolve. A man who had carried a truth too heavy for too long, finally free of it. Outside, a small group of young artists waited by the barricade. One of them yelled, "Thank you!" Usher looked up, nodded once, and kept walking. Because sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's just the sound of someone finally being believed.